Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scotty Hagness. This is Conversations, Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity. Scott, how goes it?
Hey, it goes pretty good. Pretty good. A little
Finishing up a
chilly here
little lunch,
today.
I see there, Scott.
Yep.
Well, for you, might
Hopefully
be
nothing
like an
stuck in
early,
my
early
teeth.
lunch-ish kind of deal.
It is, yeah. Early lunch, first lunch. Kind of. I thought, man, if I don't jam it down now, I'm gonna have to train when I'm ravenously hungry because when we're done, it's time to train. So
The Friday grind, man. You know, it's
yeah.
interesting. So I just got a Fitbit, and I can see here.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
I got a gift card for Nordstrom. I'm like, what the hell am I going to get at Nordstrom? I was like, maybe they have a heart rate monitor or a watch or something like that because my wristband broke. I was like, all right, they have some decent watches. Like, oh, maybe I'll just look if they have a Fitbit. So they had like Fitbits for like $130. I had $100 gift card, so I was like, you know what? It would be $30 anyway if I was going to get a regular watch, and the Fitbit has a heart rate monitor on it, so I can kind of vaguely track my heart rate. As I found out now that when you work out with a Fitbit, it comes in and out. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing like high power intervals, and it says my heart rate's like 130. So I'm like, okay, this isn't exact.
Yeah.
But
Jostling around, yeah.
it gives you a decent idea, and especially if like you're in a monostructural environment, it's probably a little bit better off. But
Right. Probably designed for that sort of setting, I'd imagine.
exactly, I don't know about burpees and power cleans and whatnot, but it's fairly comfortable. You really don't realize you have it on. The face is not nearly as cumbersome as like say a regular watch, so you can kind of get away with it during regular workouts. It has I wanted to get one in particular that had a stopwatch on it and it had a heart rate monitor. So for $130, I said, why not give it a try? And one of the reasons also why I want to do it, because there's a lot of people who I coach and who I've worked with in the past who wear Fitbits. And I wanted to kind of get inside their head a little bit and see what this offers and what it unveils and reveals about not only your fitness, but also your psyche. Scott, have you come across a Fitbit before? Have you ever worn one of them?
I have not ever worn one. No. I'm certainly aware of them, and like I think we all do, work with people that have them.
Yes.
Yeah, but
So when you see
I'm not a
someone
huge fan of things on my wrist. So
I hear you. When you see somebody wearing a Fitbit, Scott, what's your first thought that comes to mind as a coach? Be honest,
boy.
because I know what mine is,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest too.
yeah, I'd be like, I was like, oh boy. Yeah.
I'll go first.
You go first.
So it's the same thing when someone gives you their food log and it's meticulously written out, weighed, measured, everything, and they're like, "What's wrong with me?"
Yeah.
That kind of person is in the same boat in a lot of ways. I think people, and again, this is just my experience. I might be completely typecasting people and being biased, but when I see a person wearing a Fitbit, I again, like surface value, a person who is concerned about taking enough steps, moving enough, and burning enough calories in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Am
Yeah,
I close to what you were thinking there, Scott?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot more quantitative than it is qualitative in a lot of ways, like a type
Yeah.
of person, right?
Yep.
And it's funny because as soon as I got this thing on, I was like, it almost sets you up into the matrix, because it's like, all right, and you start getting updates and shit from your email because you have to like register online, and then like it automatically syncs to your phone, and then if you don't turn off notifications, your phone notifications will go to your Fitbit. So if someone's calling you, if someone texts you, it vibrates. So it's constantly keeping you within this like, rat race type of thing in the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you get like 10,000 steps, fireworks go off and a parade goes by and you're like, what the hell just happened? Why is my wrist vibrating? But it's weird because like for a second there, I was like, oh, wow, cool. I did that. And I was just like, that doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, that being said, like obviously for a person who is sedentary or who needs that external motivation, it could definitely be beneficial, especially for establishing decent habits. Like if you're a person who really doesn't move a lot, having a Fitbit on your wrist and getting that little bit of external validation tends to be something that it's a carrot that maybe can put you in the right direction. And it also tracks your heart rate as well, fairly well. I think that's okay. And it also tracks your sleep, though, like reading into it, I don't know how accurate that could possibly be. Have you done any like little sleep monitors before, Scott?
That I have done. Yep.
Okay, which one did you use?
So I used back in about 2012, 13, I used, I think it was called Sleep Cycle. And the idea was you just set your phone, I'd put it on airplane mode so I didn't radiate myself, but you'd set it kind of under your pillow and it did the track the movement. So fairly low tech, but I know
Yep.
some work on that. And then I did the Misfit sleep tracking band and app for a while, several years after that.
Yep.
Yeah, and kind of working on the same idea.
So it's like an accelerometer in it, and if it moves, it kind of gives you a vague
Yeah.
idea of what the sleep
Yeah, and
cycles
then
might
it just
look like.
uploads the wireless. Yeah, it Bluetooths it to your phone when you finish sleeping for the day.
Yep. So, similar idea with the Fitbit. And that was something I was interested in. So when I wore it to bed, I was like, okay, cool. Like this will be something. But then I didn't realize that, every time you move the face, just like an iWatch, the light turns on. So now I got this light beaming me in the face every 20 minutes when I'm going to sleep. And it wasn't until the next day I realized you could just shut that off. But the first night was a little rough.
Right. Yeah.
However, it gives you like your REM sleep, your light sleep, your deep sleep. And again, it's all very, very vague, but just some, things to think about and consider. And it all kind of puts some awareness on all those things. So the number of steps I took in a 4-hour span during coaching was, 10,000 steps in 4 hours.
Oh, interesting.
And then
Yeah,
it's approximately like 4 miles of walking or something like that, a little over 4 miles of walking. I don't know how accurate the calorie tracking is though, but I'm burning like 3,500 to 4,000 calories on this little thing each day. So I don't know how accurate that is, but it made me appreciate how much I'm actually moving at work and how much energy I'm actually expending. So when I'm also trying to do training, and then I have to coach my kids for lacrosse, and then I'm coaching 4 hours. Oh, and then I got the noon class. It's like you're moving a lot and you're doing a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So that made me aware of the toll that it takes on you. And when I look at like the amount of training that I did back in the day of like trying to become a high level athlete, I'm like, yo, you're spending 5 extra hours like walking and not even just walking in hot weather, while also coaching and then demonstrating movements, and
maybe
it could be
carrying
exhausting.
plates or something. And
Yeah, dude, it's it's laborious, and it's 300 days a year.
Yeah. No, I have recently been thinking about how I think one of the reasons why coaches stay, physically fit isn't because we have easy access to a gym so much as it is. It's just a pretty damn physical job.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're always moving, and that's might add up and account for more than, some of the specific training we're actually doing.
Yeah, like as of right now, it says I've walked 5.86 miles today.
Damn,
But I coached the 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I just did the noon class. I mean, I'm halfway. It's 2:00 right now. I mean, I'm going to be moving throughout the rest of the day too, in other ways, but still, like I'm moving a lot. So you're right. There's a lot more than meets the eye when you become a coach and you're working on the floor.
Yeah, here's a little side tangent, but I'm eager to do this. So, me and my little quirky sport of flatland BMX, where I basically ride around a parking lot doing weird tricks, but I don't go anywhere, right?
Yes.
And
see where you're going.
Another rider recently had one of those, apps, to track your ride.
Yep.
But he wore it and he just went and practiced in a parking lot. And
Yep.
I was shocked at I don't know how accurate it is on such a small level, but how far he actually traveled in I forget how long he practiced, 45 minutes or an hour. And it was funny. This is my ride. This is exactly hilarious, but I'm really curious. I have one of those that I've used for when I've been training on my other bike. And I'm going to
throw it on your BMX. That's a good point, because you wouldn't have it on your BMX.
Yeah, I would never. And I don't.
You just need like the little
phone in my
magnet,
pocket,
and then it just matches up to it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
so,
interesting.
So we'll do a little experiment and see just how far I actually am riding when I just roll around a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. If you're going for an hour and, say conservatively you're going, let's say 10 miles an hour over that time, that's 10 miles of riding that you're doing and not just like, you know, riding. I mean, it's 10 miles an hour, but you're doing it like focusing on movements, and you're holding a planche while doing it.
Balanced on
one
balanced
leg,
on
spinning
one
one of the wheels.
You know,
it's incredibly. I mean, the way I consider it, it's like, okay, yeah, you walk 3 miles while you're practicing tightrope for an hour, but you're practicing a tightrope for an hour. You know what I mean? So
it's not the same as just going for
it's
a stroll.
A little different stimulus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, wearing it gives me a little bit of insight into the psyche of a person who would then put it on. And again, nothing is good, nothing is bad. It's all what you make of it. And this could be a valuable tool for some people of bringing awareness to some things. So if you're a person who are like, yeah, I really don't know, am I doing enough? It's like, throw a Fitbit on, like, see what you're actually doing. Like,
so the one case I used it. Yeah. I think having that feedback is nice. Also as a stress control, you know, when people see it's high in a setting it shouldn't be, you know, employing some breathing resets. But I've got, you know, some clients that I work with that I do like it because, you know, I really try to push the idea of being active outside the gym and walking, you know, is something that most anybody can do. And so for those folks, if they do have a Fitbit, that's where they're going, you know, coming up with some sort of a realistic target of steps to try to hit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it helps, but yeah, the constant notifications and buzzing on your, you know,
people can definitely get neurotic about it, and then it becomes something that the ego wants to overcome, and it just becomes a tool of the ego. You know what I mean? And that in itself is something that people want to avoid, because people want to attach meaning to things and attach their identity to things. So I'm a person who walks 10,000 steps a day, or I'm a person who burns this many calories. And it's like, well, you're not that. You may think that you're that, but you take that Fitbit away. Are you still that? The other thing that I got out of it as well is there is a Calm like little application on it. So it takes 2 minutes, and it gives you a little message that says notice your breathing. And then it has like a little vibration that says like breathe in, and it vibrates, and then it breathes out and vibrates. And it has like a little thing. You're supposed to match your breath to the actual animation.
So a little,
either a 2 minute or 5 minute calm de-stress.
Heart rate coherence kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, very cool and very clever. And I'm like, damn, now that's useful.
That's pretty cool. I did not know that those have
that.
I know you can get apps, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're like little things. And this is all like, 8-bit type things that, this is very, very simple. But you just hit it, and then it vibrates, and then it just says, be still, take slow, deep breaths. It's pretty cool. It's like a little meditation app on your wrist. And
it's awesome.
The other thing that I can see as useful for something like this is a objective metric in wellness, fitness wellness, and either through gyms or corporate wellness programs, how you can just upload that data, and you can have like say your company hired a wellness coordinator for a group of 20, let's say. And you just upload your data, and then they get some objective readings of what's going on, and then say, okay, now we can get maybe a little bit more accurate picture of what you should be eating. Or, okay, well, during this part of the day, your heart rate is skyrocketing. What were you doing there? Well, I was in a stressful conference call. Okay, cool. So after those conference calls, you're going to hit the calm button, and you're going to take 5 minutes to just be still. Like, I think it'd be a really cool adjunct to any trainers or fitness consultants that want to take things maybe on a little bit more integrative level and be able to do it remotely as well.
Yeah. I can totally
if that makes sense.
That. Yeah. Huh.
Because,
very cool. Yeah, I think, and is that something that people can develop apps for, or
I was when I did a
fitness, third parties come in and do that.
We did a fitness and wellness challenge, because you can integrate that data with like an Apple Watch. All that is done through Apple Health, where you can then like upload data into a database or whatever. I imagine there's something similar you can do with Fitbit, so it's a little bit more accessible, because you need Fitbits are probably a little bit less expensive than, let's say, an Apple Watch. Mm-hmm. But I know that you can do like challenges. Because there was a guy at my gym who's helping develop applications like that, where say you were in a corporate wellness challenge and your objective was to get 500 points throughout the challenge. It's like every day that you walk 10,000 steps, that was 2 points. And, that was your way of telling is like, okay, it would upload and then bam, it would automatically get those points and put them into your bank based upon your Fitbit data or your Apple Watch data. If you exercise that day, that was points. And again, all that allocates to one pot. Again, the reasoning behind that is if you're doing all the things necessary to change your life, you don't even have to worry about changing your life. It's going to do it yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you're being mindful, if you're staying present, if you're exercising, if you're putting good stuff in your body, if you're taking the time to de-stress and be still, if you're just worrying about that or just focusing your energy on that, you don't even have to worry about like, am I doing it right? Or is this going to be, am I getting the right result? It's like, no, it's like just work on the process. And, and then you look at things after a 6 week, 8 week, 12-week period. And you're like, oh shit. Like, I've lost 10 pounds. I'm feeling better. I'm more productive at work. I'm less addictive to certain things. And then it becomes, an entire different, different program in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see lots of uses.
Absolutely.
And technology has a double-edged sword, right? Okay, we can really come up with some cool things to do in the way we can share information and knowledge, but some of the other downsides, the constant creep of wanting or needing to check or feeling like we need to be available at every minute.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, I'm fighting that at the moment. Just a moment ago, I got some text that came through, and it's like it's nothing that needs to be. It's not even really important, but it's like right there. It's like, oh, I got to answer those.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I get an email, I feel like they know that I've received the email, and if I don't send it back, then they're like, "Oh, this guy's an asshole. He didn't respond to me." I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Can they tell I'm online right now?
I know exactly. How do they know? Yeah, but you're absolutely right, though, Scott. I long for the days of snail mail, where when you got it, you're like, "Oh, I got 3 days to respond to this thing."
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
Totally.
But again, like everything comes with some kind of cost and benefit. So we have an amazing technology that we can use. However, if we allow those, areas that play more toward the egoic side of us and the control side of us, that could definitely run amok very quickly.
Yes, this is absolutely true.
So, yeah. Scott, I had a question for you because we talked a little bit about the conversation from this past. Joe Rogan had some awesome guests on this last week or so. He had Joel D'Agostino and Chris Kresser, and then he also had Dr. Rhonda Patrick on, and then he had some ketogenic experts on as well. So he's been just knocking out of the park recently in terms of plenty of content for fitness and nutrition geeks like us. Mm-hmm. But, you've said in the past, Scott, that you've kind of moved more toward a plant-based diet plus, right? A little less meat in your diet, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you made that transition over time? Because I imagine in the past, like say the early 2000s into the mid 2000s, you might have been much more in that middle ground of like meat as the primary source, and then vegetables and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Can you kind of briefly talk about that? Because I know there's a lot of people who are just in one camp or the other, and I want to kind of get a perspective of someone who's been in both.
Yeah. I definitely have been in all camps, probably at some point outside of, as I think we talked on last week, my very brief and very poorly done vegetarian experiment a long time before I knew anything about anything.
Yep.
But with that said, I had eaten a lot of protein for quite a few years. I probably started eating a lot of protein in 1997, more of a bodybuilding diet. And then really, I don't know, up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was pretty consistent, through the paleo phase. It was obviously very meat-based. And part of it just is that I had certain blood changes when I guess when I was low carb and all that didn't really change even when I went away from carbs and went in. I mean, I'm sorry, when I went away from the low carb diet and started eating a lot of carbs, and they still didn't change. And the one thing that was consistent is I just ate a lot of meat and a lot of red meat. And I have a friend here in town who's a naturopath, and so there are certain genotypes that just don't do well with that, and any significant amount causes them problems. And I know historically in my past, my labs did not look at all that way from anything I had before I started excessively tinkering. And so I decided to give it a try. And I think, well, I've loaded protein for a lot of years. Let's see how I roll with a little less. And honestly, I mean, I feel good. I mean, generally my recovery and the way I feel is the best it's ever been for the most part, and has been for the last number of years and on a lot of levels. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I certainly haven't seen fall-offs in, performance or, problems that way. I've lost muscle mass, but that's intentional. My strength per pound has actually gone up significantly. And so then what did I replace it with? Well, more plant-based foods, basically, in a smorgasbord. I ate a fair amount of legumes, which I fairly well enjoy them. I tolerate them well.
So what in particular, what type of legumes there, Scott?
I mix it up. I mean, I do lentils fairly often. There's all type of lentils, but I also will do other various beans. I think I have chili beans here today.
Yep.
Not chili per se, but just chili beans. I go pretty low tech, basic beans. I mix them in with other stuff. Lentil based recipes. And then, and then when I am eating meat or protein, I really try to go toward not so much pure muscle meat. So, I typically do, bone broths, tendons, sometimes collagen-based things, and that's the kind of thing I would tend to eat more. And then liver for sure.
Okay.
And occasionally other organ meats, but it's just too difficult. I don't have the time to go source it all out.
Yeah.
So I go a little bit low tech, but I try to stick with those things more than muscle meats. And it's kind of protein with the family at dinner time is still kind of the thing.
Yep.
But I may not have any meat, on a few different meals through the day, but I vary it. I don't have a set plan. I just don't roll that structured anymore.
Yep. Let me ask you this, Scott. If you say, wanted to go back into putting on muscle mass, would adding meat back into your diet be an idea that you would tinker with, or would you say, okay, maybe I could just bulk up a little bit more of the plant-based foods that I eat?
That's a good question. At some point, I will come to that fork in the road because I will want to put the little of the muscle I lost back on. But I hadn't really thought that through. I mean, I might try it with plant-based and see. I mean, the thing is, as we well know, right, when you've had a certain amount of muscle mass, it's much easier to regain it than it is to put it on in the first place. And I've gone up and down, I think, about 5 or 6 times from like the weight I am now to 20 pounds heavier of muscle already in my training career. So I have no doubt it would come back fairly easily. So maybe a good experiment would be to try it without actually upping the meat intake. I would see what would do that.
Very
That's just, I hadn't really thought about it, though, to be completely honest.
Yeah. I know, because there's so many people now who are kind of going one way or the other now, especially now that there's more information out and more availability of plant-based proteins, whether it is supplementation or just knowledge of like, okay, you're going to mix, rice and beans for more complete protein sources, or you're going to go with quinoa or whatever it might be. Or even doing much more conservative versions of meat, like crustaceans and seafood and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That are a lot more, eco-friendly is the best word. I
forgot to mention. I've also shifted more toward various seafood or shellfish, things like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just so much more bioavailability of the minerals and micronutrients and all that kind of stuff and that kind of thing. But you were saying, Scott?
I was just saying. I know I do use some vegan protein powders.
Yep.
my wife is quite dairy intolerant, and
Mm.
these days she's kind of the one training harder than me, and so there's quite a bit of protein powder around the house, and it's
Yep.
typically not any sort of whey. It's not milk based, so I use that, and seems totally fine to me.
Yep. Myself, anecdotally, I mean, you know me, I've been doing post-workout shakes forever and ever and ever. And once I got done with like serious training, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I kind of bagged doing a post-workout shake, and just started doing just a good sized meal after my training, anywhere between an hour and 2 hours after my training. And then maybe integrating some more simple carbohydrates to just round out that meal. Plus, the more simple carbohydrates are usually something that's a little bit of an indulgence and allows me to eat kind of more because it's more mouth friendly. So like if you had for instance, I'm going to have a big bowl of chicken soup in a little bit over an entire like 2 cups of rice. So that chicken soup over the 2 cups of rice is going to be an enormous amount of food. It's probably gonna be like 1.5 pounds of food. So after that, I'm like, I don't want to eat like, just a more potatoes or something like that,
Right.
especially if it's a simple carbohydrate. So I'll take like a couple of whole grain rice cakes, throw some peanut butter and jelly on that, and I'm rocking out with that. Like that's like a treat for me. So for people who are like, they may not do great with those insulin shifts, and blood sugar shifts, and they're looking for something where like post-workout wise, and maybe a little bit more conscious about keeping grains out of their diet. Something like a rice cake with some stuff on top of it is just super, super convenient, super, super simple, and gives you kind of that mix of like, this is a treat, but it's also something that's relatively has quality to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually doesn't sound that unlike what I do. In fact, I was laughing when you said chicken soup over rice, because that's what I was eating when you called me.
Yeah, man.
with some extra collagen in it.
Yeah. So I take I'll take about usually about between 4 and 6 pounds of chicken thighs, of free range chicken thighs, and I'll throw that in a slow cooker with just a bunch of vegetables, cook it off for about 4.5 hours, which is, fill it with water, fill it with some different spices and herbs. And then that's it. I mean, couldn't be more simple than that. There's no real prep, just be able to chop up some stuff and do that. I'll swap that out, and I'll do like my chili, my grass-fed beef chili, also. So I usually have like 3 different types of things that I'll cycle through in the slow cooker, and those will be my lunches, because that's usually the time I'm most crunched during the day, where I just want to come home, eat, and just like get work done, whatever it is in the middle of the day.
Right. Don't want to think about fixing something.
Exactly. So, but as of recently, looking at this Fitbit, I'm like, maybe one of the reasons why strength hasn't been not hasn't been as impressive over the years. I know one of the main reasons is just like you're working 5 hours a day on your feet, and you're walking about 4.5 miles to 5 miles while also carrying shit and demonstrating stuff. So one, you're just going to be hampered by that, where if you're a professional athlete, you're not going to be doing that. But two, it's like, are you being able to keep up with that impressive amount of calorie intake that you need to? So it's much less about the training, because I think we understand over time, it's just going to take a while to get strong, and it's just compounding over time, working on your mechanics, working on mastering the movements, and then being able to actually create intensity over time without breaking down, but just eating.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that has helped so much is the point we've allowed ourselves to, some easier to digest, a little more palatable, high calorie foods has actually improved our recovery, because, when you see how much you're doing between coaching and then if there's training, et cetera, it's a lot. And, the body only has so much energy, and it's going to allocate that based on what it has available. And, there's no better way to slow down gains than not eat enough to fuel everything you're doing.
Yeah. So I imagine there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are also on the floor coaching and that kind of stuff. So if you're wondering why your gains aren't, happening, it's not your training. If
Right.
anything, you're training too much.
Yeah.
Train
Usually
less,
everybody
eat
gets
more,
the training
recover
right.
more.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking for strength gains. I mean, conditioning and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, it's about quality. The other thing I'm definitely going to be, we'll talk about next week is really, really, really staying away from maximal intensities during aerobic intervals. And I'd love to talk to you about that next week, Scott, because I know you have plenty of experience with that, especially using the Omega Wave, heart rate training, and then working with Mark. It was Mark McLaughlin you worked with that, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so I really, really want to talk to you about that next week because it's something that I've been trying more recently, and I have qualifiers that are going on right now for Wodapalooza, so I want to share with that a little bit of that stuff as well.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely have some probably some insights there, and if not, we can do some research and maybe come back and wrap it up in a week following. And
perfect.
And yeah,
awesome. All right, Scott, you got anything else for today?
I think that'll do it.
Perfect.
Time to put a sweatshirt on here.
Oh, beautiful. I'm Sean LaFlock. You can get me at Sean@CrossFitDelrabeach.com.
I'm Scott Hagnes. You can get me at Scott@CrossFitPortland.com.
All right, Scotty. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you then.
Later, dude.
Later.